Hey YouTube, it's Marita from the Nurse Lounge, and in this edition, we're going to talk about something very, very serious. So, I've already did a video on what my life is like as a postpartum nurse. And so that video is already loaded or uploaded, and I will attach that one at the bottom on the end card so you'll know, to have a direct link to it after this one goes off if you choose to watch that one. But in this video specifically, I wanted to kind of talk about what my patients are really like, or in terms of the demographic of patients that I have, because for some reason there's a misconception about OB and about this being a happy place all the time, and that's far from the truth. So let's talk about the patients that I see. If you're interested, stay tuned. All right, so we're back. So I guess you want to hear about my experiences with my patients. So let me get adjusted and let's talk. So this is story time, I guess. So in my patient population, we serve high risk. Well, I wouldn't say that's what we serve. That's just what comes through. So I live in an area in which we serve high risk OB patients. And what that basically means is they are some of your regular patients who come in and they're just there to have a baby. They don't have any comorbidities or any other medical problems, shall I say. But there is so much going on in their lives that necessitates them to be considered high risk because they have drama going on in their lives, or they are drug moms. So they may be healthy in one regard regarding they don't have hypertension and things like that, but they're taking drugs. So when you have a patient population that enjoys, or I don't want to say enjoys, but decides that they're going to use this recreationally, or because they've become dependent or addicted to it, they are using this to cope at this point in time, then you have to kind of consider what's going on with the patient and then also what's going on with the baby. So just as a reference, we had about, just last week alone, on one day, we had about, say, 15 moms and babies, obviously. 7 of them, 7 or 8, I don't remember the count, were born addicted to drugs. So the babies were born addicted to drugs. So mama come in, she's on something or whatever. And when I tell you they're on drugs, I mean they're on, I'm not talking about just popping pills. I'm not talking about just taking Lortabs or Percocets and things like that, Xanax. We're talking about heroin, crack, cocaine. This last one was on meth. She took speed, which is like ecstasy and all the other stuff. So our patients take some pretty hard stuff. And then they're wondering why, once they have their babies, their pain control is so terrible. Like I tell people, we cannot help you control your pain when what you have on the streets is harder than what we have in the hospital. And that's saying something. So when you take in something that's so strong in the streets, the little morphine we have, Dilaudid, the D that they like, Dilaudid, it don't help you. Or if it does help, it's very short term. So we have issues with pain control. We have issues with, the babies withdrawing. I don't know, their babies have a distinct cry when they are hungry, when they're wet, when they want to be held. And moms, we learn that over time. But babies who are withdrawing have their own cry. And that cry, it's terrible to hear because they are in pain. They're crying because they're in pain because they're withdrawing from a drug. That is the reality of what I deal with almost on a day-to-day basis at this point. I then have to call DCS, or if not me, the nursery nurse or somebody has to call DCS and file a report and say that this baby was addicted or born with this drug in its system. So how do we find out if the baby is on the drug or has the drug in its system? So once we find out that mom has, either she's admitted it on her own, or typically a lot of the moms have no prenatal care at all. So, or limited prenatal care. So they only come to the doctor or the hospital when something's really, really wrong. Well, that's a clue for us. And so anybody who gets no prenatal care automatically is going to be drug screened. Automatically drug screened. So that's how we found out that as well. Either they're going to tell us or we're going to be drug screened regardless. So that's how we find that out. Once we find that out, then we then test baby to see if baby is born addicted as well. So basically by getting a urine sample or a poop sample, a meconium sample, one way or the other. So when the baby pees or when the baby poops, we get a sample of that, send it to the lab, and they test it to see if there's any drug or whatever in the baby system. If it is, we file a report, and then here we go. So that's how we find out. Now, when that's said and done, that baby has to be scored. So we're talking about the baby at this point in time. It has to be scored. And we call that neonatal abstinence syndrome, NAS, neonatal abstinence syndrome. And when we score these babies, there's certain things we score on. And if they score high enough, they have to be then treated or transferred to the NICU. So they start off in well baby nursery. But then once they score high enough, they will then be sent to the NICU for their care, meaning they need a higher level of care. They're gonna have an IV started. They're gonna have to be on a pain regimen as well, usually morphine, but there may be some other drugs or medications that they use to help treat pain. And that's what they have to do. And they typically eat very poorly, the baby does. They have to be held a lot, they cry a lot. And sometimes, you know, the parents may or may not have access to the baby, it just depends on what's going on with them. But that's kind of what happens with the baby. And then in terms of what goes on after that, when they go home, we have to teach the mom about how to care for a baby who may be going through withdrawals. So that's kind of where we go with that. And depending on the situation, sometimes they go home with mom, believe it or not. In our state, or at least in our city, it's not always taken away. And sometimes I find it very hard to believe that we have some situations in which they'll come take the baby away. I've had a mom who she did marijuana, and I'm not condoning any drug at all, but she did marijuana, and her baby was taken away. But someone else did, let's say, cocaine, and the baby got to go home with the father of the baby, who she lives with, mind you. So what was the point of that? What was really the point of that? So that's kind of the things that I see. It's just so contradictory, where I'm like, I don't know what's going on with the other. This one gets taken away from marijuana, but the crack one goes home with the father, with the mother lives with. And they know that when they place the baby with the father. So that's kind of how that works sometimes. Now, when it comes to the mom, what do we see on the postpartum side? Well, it depends on the drug. So some of the drugs, it makes them where they'll sleep all the time. Some of them, it makes them where they're hungry. Some of them, they are just, you know, they're angry until they get their next hit, which, mind you, we can't give in the hospital. So therefore, we're dealing with a lot of withdrawal from moms as well. And so when you're dealing with this patient population, you have to know how to engage and to interact with them, because if you don't, you know, things can happen. We've had people come up swinging because of the fact that they are just annoyed by us, and they're upset with us that we can't manage their pain. So that's kind of what it's like to deal with some of these moms. We have a lot of drugs, a drugs problem, opioid problem. So even just the prescription side of it, we have a lot of that as well. And honestly, the state I live in, which is Tennessee, we rank 3rd in the nation for opioid prescriptions. 3rd. So no wonder. No wonder. Now, keep in mind, people don't just go and say, I think I'm going to try me some Lortabs today just to see what it does to cope with my situation. That's typically not how it works. Typically, you prescribe them, and they're highly addictive. And then as a result, you end up staying on them for whatever your reason you're on them for. Then you get pregnant, and then, you know, here we go. So be mindful that everybody's not on the hunt to get high or to be on drugs, but this is just kind of how it ends up. And especially if we live in a state in which the opioid crisis is as bad as it is. So like I said, we're 3rd in the nation. We rank number 3. That's not a good number. That's not a good number for us. So we need to do something about that. So those are the largest kind of patients I have, not largest, but in terms of the most, what I'm beginning to see now as the current trend is a lot of drug babies in moms. So we have that. And then on top of that, we have moms with comorbidities. So we're talking about people who have hypertension, diabetes, they have mental illnesses. So we have schizophrenia, they have bipolar depression, postpartum depression, they have it all. So you'll see anything like that. Now, what people don't think about is the forensic population. So who is that? The forensic population are the women who are in jail. So They got pregnant at some point in time. They're now in jail for a crime they committed, and now it's time to have the baby. So guess what happens to them when they have their baby? Majority of them are shackled to the bed. Not their whole body, but like usually a leg is shackled to the bed. Sometimes when they are delivering, they will have the guard is present at that moment in time. Actually, in the room, there's usually 2 guards present. At least in my state, we have, or not state but city, we have 2 guards present in the room. And I don't know in every situation are the shackles taken off to have the baby, but I've seen plenty of times where the shackles were left on to have a baby. So literally the baby's coming out and she is shackled to the bed. Her leg is shackled to the bed. She can't go anywhere. And I don't really know too many people who are actively having a baby who get it up, walking around anyway or trying to run away anyway. But it is what it is. Once they come to my side of the hospital, which is postpartum, they are still shackled to the bed, and they have the 2 guards, and they are not allowed to have anything that's considered what they call a treat. So I remember I was giving a patient Sprites and things like that, and I got yelled at by the guard saying she cannot have that because she's a prison patient. And in my mind, I'm not thinking about that. I'm just thinking that she's a person and she want a Sprite. She can have a Sprite. The whole floor gets Sprites. So I got yelled at about that. So I realized I couldn't have that. We don't have at this hospital prison patients often, but when we do, it's a big to-do because it's like how do we do this and how do we do that? She can't make phone calls to anyone, so any messages that have to be relayed has to be relayed through the nurse. She cannot have cutlery in terms of silverware. It has to be the plastic. She cannot have a regular tray. It has to be on styrofoam. And I found out this last time I had a forensic patient that she cannot order her own food. They have to get what's considered house special, which I did not know we had a house special. So just whatever they cooking up is what she gets. She does not get to make choices about what she wants to eat, which on our floor or in our hospital, our patients make choices about what they want to eat. They call down there and say, I want this, 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 and this, and they'll just bring it up when they finish fixing it. In her situation, she can't do that. It's whatever house special is. So that's, that was different for me. So we have that situation. I did already touch on the mentally ill. So we have people who are literally, they have not been on meds for the entire pregnancy. Sometimes they have not had prenatal care, so they have not been on meds because of that. And they're, I wouldn't say crazy, but they a little off, just a little bit off. And we have to deal with that and try to get them on a regimen that's going to work for them because they are not mentally with it. I have people too who are on the lower SES. So that means lower socioeconomic status. I mean low income, poor, poverty, whatever word you want to use, that's who I'm talking about. So when you come to those kind of patients right there, they come to the hospital ill-prepared a lot of times. They don't have their car seat that they need to take baby home on. They don't have clothes to take the baby home. They don't have clothes for themselves. There's times we have to send people home in gowns because of the fact that we don't have, or they don't have any clothes for themselves. We have people who are uneducated. So I don't mean uneducated meaning that they, they're still in high school or whatever. We have that too. We have teen moms and, all that. I've had moms who are 15 years old having their 2nd and 3rd baby. So, that's normal to me, where that's not normal to the population. But I mean, like they're simple-minded, meaning that they literally, they're just simple. They don't have any common sense. They don't have any, they're not mentally, in terms of what they call intellectually disabled. I don't mean that, but I mean they're normal minded, but they're just very simple. And they don't know A from B, B from A, Z to A, or any other direction. They're just very simple people. We have our parents who some of us call granola moms or earthy moms. And those are the kind of ones who are your anti-vaxxers. Those are your the ones who keep their placentas. And believe it or not, people do keep their placenta. So after they have their baby, they'll keep the placenta and they will send it off somewhere to get it processed, where they will either encapsulate it, they will either cook it themselves and eat it or consume it, or they will bury it. Some people have burial rituals they do with their placenta. So we call those like our granola moms and things like that. And that's, not to make fun of those kind of people in any way, but that's kind of what we call them. But it is what it is. If they want to keep their placenta, as long as they have a place for it, it's perfectly fine with us. We don't really care. A lot of moms come in with birth plans. So do you know what a birth plan is? So a birth plan is basically where you have a planned, course of action for your delivery and for your stay in the hospital. So some things you might see on a birth plan may mean that I want my cord clamped. I don't want my cord clamped immediately. I want to have an extended period of time in which more of the blood can reach from the placenta to the baby before we, a delayed cord clamping. That's what it's called. I couldn't think of it. Delayed cord clamping. There's people who delay getting the erythromycin put in the baby's eyes, or people who do not want vaccines for their baby. There's people who do not want to be asked about pain medication at all. Don't ask them. They will tell you if they want it. They want an all natural birth. People who don't want any IVs. They don't want any, they want to be in a room with the lighting is dim and there's music playing and things like that. That's what goes into a birth plan. So you will know, so they will know, the doctors will know, the staff will know what plans you want. What do you want to have your baby? So we have those kind of moms too. And who do you want present? So I want my mom present, I want my husband present, I want my boyfriend or whoever present, my sister present, whoever you want present. So that's what goes into a birth plan. Typically on the postpartum side, it's not much to do over there that they really care about, but it's usually labor and delivery and the baby itself and nursery. Sometimes they say they don't want the baby to be bathed at all. So meaning that they will not give the baby its first bath at the hospital. Sometimes they'll say, I'm going to wait till we get home and do the first bath at home. And if that's what we want, if that's what they want, that's fine. We just simply label the crib and says this baby has not had a bath. Because if you haven't had a bath, that means we're at risk for infection. So therefore, we're going to make sure that everybody knows in terms of not other parents, but in terms of all the nurses, so that they will definitely wear their gloves anytime they're handling that baby. So what else in postpartum and nursery that we have to deal with a lot? I think that pretty much sums it up. You know, otherwise you're going to have your normal people. So you're going to have your, you know, your moms and your dads who plan this pregnancy, who, you know, doing everything they can to make sure everything's good with the pregnancy, taking their medication, taking their prenatal vitamins and things like that. Oh, I do want to mention our surrogates. We have a lot of surrogate moms. So you may have a gay couple, a lesbian couple, whatever, and they're wanting to have a baby. Or we've even seen people who it's a heterosexual couple, but she does not want to be pregnant herself by choice. And what we used to think was a Hollywood type of thing is now come over to Tennessee. So where they will, you know, have someone else be pregnant and they will take the sperm and egg and unite it and put it in the surrogate's womb, uterus, and get it implanted, and the baby will grow in her. She has the baby, and then she turns the baby back over to the family. We see that a lot too. So we see all kinds of things in patient-wise in OB. You name it, we got it. So mental health, we got it. Homeless, I never mentioned homeless, but homeless women, we have those as well. Trying to get them back to a shelter, trying to figure out what we're going to do with this baby. We have people who adopt their babies out. They don't want the baby. We have people who, like I said, mental health, drugs, of course, surrogates. We have same-sex couples. We have, believe it or not, we have older couples. So I had my patient, she was somehow about 49 or 50 who was able to get pregnant, and they were definitely not expecting it. She already had gray hair. He had gray hair. They looked like they were in their mid-50s, late 50s almost. And they could not believe they were having a baby again, and I will never forget them. And so that was kind of like, you know, every time somebody gets pregnant doesn't mean everybody's happy about it, because it's kind of like, oh my gosh, we already finished raising our kids and here we are pregnant again. So we've seen situations like that. One more group I wanted to talk about, I can't think of what it was now. I talked about the forensics. I talked about, I can't think of who it was I was going to talk about. Anyway, if I do think of it, I'll put it down in the description. So I hope that you have been enlightened by this video to know that it's, oh, I know what I was going to say, the tubal patients. So people have decided that I'm going to get a tubal ligation, meaning that I'm going to get my tubes tied because we have decided we do not want any more children. And I've had about 7 or 8 patients come back in my almost 13 years. Almost 15 years, sorry. Been a nurse for almost 15 years. Who have gotten pregnant after a tubal. So again, I wanted to make sure you understand this is not about birth control, but there is nothing that will prevent you from getting pregnant with the exception of 4 things. So you want to know how you don't get pregnant? The only 4 ways to not get pregnant is abstinence. So you're not doing anything to get yourself in that situation. No, not tubal. Hysterectomy. So everything's been taken out. menopause, you have no more eggs to release, so therefore you are by nature unable to conceive, or death. So if you are no longer here, you can't get pregnant. Those are the only 4 ways that you cannot get pregnant. Breastfeeding is not a method. You can get pregnant while breastfeeding. So I want to dispel that myth. You can get pregnant on the pill. You can get pregnant with condoms. You can get pregnant with Depo. You can get pregnant with the implant-on, the implants. You can get pregnant with that. You can get pregnant with any other birth control method except for those 4 things that I just mentioned. So no excuses as to why you got pregnant. Same thing for me. When I was pregnant with my first daughter, I was on the birth control pill. Nothing is 100% effective except for those 4 things. So I wanted to kind of dispel those myths while we're talking about this, because a lot of people come in and it's like, oh, I didn't even know, or I didn't, they wanted to go ahead and engage in intercourse, 2 weeks after they had the baby. And I keep telling people, you are most fertile right after you have a baby. So if you engage in intercourse and you get pregnant, well, that's kind of what you get. I've told you, don't do that if you're not wanting more children right away. But anyway, so that is kind of what I wanted to share with you regarding OB, postpartum, nursery. I wanted to talk to you about the flip side, the downside, some of the people that we see that you're kind of like, oh, I never thought about those kinds of people. I only think about Mary and Larry getting together, having a baby, who they're both established in their careers. They have money. They have a nanny on board. She can take off when she wants. He can take off when he wants. I don't see those kind of people anymore. They are far and few in between. The ones that I see are the ones that I just mentioned. Maybe because we're in Tennessee, I have no idea. Maybe because we're in the South, I have no idea. But that's just the nature of the world that I live in terms of OB. So if you are new to my channel, I thank you so much for watching this video. If you are a nurse and you have questions, or if you're not a nurse, but if you're a nurse too, but if you are a pre-nursing student or a nursing student and you have questions about OB specifically, or just about nursing in general, please leave a comment below, or you can email me at at themelaninrn.com. That's my email, themelaninrn.com. Or no, it's Marita at themelaninrn. Sorry, MARIDA at themelaninrn.com. That is my email, Marita at themelaninrn.com. So if you have a question that you want to ask me, and I will have that actually in the box as well in terms of my email. I am on Instagram as well, melaninrn_MPN, if you want to know more about nursing and follow my journey for my doctoral degree. And I aim to inspire and educate over there. So if you want to follow me on IG over there, or if you happen to come here really more so interested in my other content, which is fashion, beauty, lifestyle, things like that, then you can follow me at slay_curves_beauty, which I'll have that down below as well. That's my other IG page where I focus on plus size fashion, makeup, and beauty, and skincare. And this face that I did today, I'll get a little closer so you can see. This is using e.l.f. products. So right now I'm on the quest of finding products that I can use that are more affordable, that people who are broke like me, because I am a student, can use and still come out looking pretty good. So I used e.l.f. today and I did a review. I've not posted it yet. And I'm not sure which one will go up first, but this is my e.l.f. face using e.l.f. foundation and under eye. Well, I use the concealer under eye. Excuse me, I'm sorry. But anyway, that's not what this video is about. But if you want to know more about beauty and things like that, I have plenty of videos for you to see. Until the next time, you know the routine. Subscribe, share, comment, like, notification bell. You got it. Take care.